33 seconds. A single comment transforms a friendly interview into a full-blown meltdown that ends with security escorting a guest off the stage. This is the story of the night everything went wrong on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and Jimmy Kimmel sat behind his desk with that familiar warm smile that had welcomed countless celebrities over the years. Tonight's guest was supposed to be a dream interview. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was scheduled to talk about her latest philanthropic endeavors and her life in California. As Meghan walked onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause. She waved graciously. Her smile perfect, her outfit immaculate. She took her seat across from Jimmy, crossing her legs and settling into the chair like she owned the place. "Welcome to the show," Jimmy said, his voice friendly and genuine. "We're so happy to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Meghan replied, though her tone already carried a hint of something sharper than gratitude. "Though I must say, I expected a bigger introduction than that." The audience laughed nervously. Jimmy chuckled too, assuming it was a joke. "Well, I can start over if you'd like. Should I bring out a trumpet player?" "I'm just saying," Meghan continued, not quite smiling anymore. "When you have actual royalty on your show, perhaps a little more fanfare would be appropriate." Jimmy's smile flickered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. He was a professional. He had handled difficult guests before. "You're absolutely right," he said smoothly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the most royal guest we've ever had, Meghan Markle." The audience clapped again, but the energy had shifted. Something felt off. "So," Jimmy said, trying to steer things back on track, "you've been doing some amazing charity work lately. Tell us about that." Meghan shifted in her seat, looking almost bored. "I do a lot of charity work, Jimmy. You'll have to be more specific. I'm involved in dozens of causes. Hundreds, really." "Right, of course," Jimmy said, keeping his cool. "I was thinking specifically about the work you've been doing with children's literacy programs." "Oh, that," Meghan said, waving her hand dismissively. "Yes, I suppose that's important. Though, honestly, I think my real impact comes from just being me, you know? Being a role model. That's the real charity." A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Jimmy glanced at his notes, clearly trying to find a better topic. "Let's talk about your life in California. You and Harry seem really happy there." "We are," Meghan said. "Though it's been difficult, as you can imagine. The press has been absolutely brutal. Not like here, of course. American press is so much more respectful than British press." "Well, we try," Jimmy said with a laugh. "Do you?" Meghan asked, her eyes narrowing. "Because I've seen some of the things written about me in American publications too, and honestly, Jimmy, it's disgraceful. The way the media treats women, especially women of color, especially women who dare to speak their minds and not just sit there looking pretty." "You're absolutely right that the media can be tough," Jimmy agreed carefully. "But I think most people really admire what you've done, how you've stood up for yourself." "Most people," Meghan repeated. "But not all people. Not people like you, apparently." Jimmy blinked. "I'm sorry." "You heard me," Meghan said, leaning forward. "I've seen your show, Jimmy. I've seen the jokes you've made, the little comments. You think I don't notice?" The audience was dead silent now. Jimmy's producers were probably freaking out in the control room. "Meghan," Jimmy said, his voice still calm, still professional, "I'm not sure what you're referring to. If I've ever said anything that offended you, that was never my intention." "Intention," Meghan scoffed. "That's always the excuse, isn't it? Oh, I didn't mean it that way." "But the harm is still done, Jimmy. The words are still out there." "Can you give me a specific example?" Jimmy asked. "Because I genuinely don't know what you're talking about." Meghan sat back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Last month, the monologue. You made a joke about people who complain about their privilege. Jimmy thought for a moment. I make a lot of jokes, Meghan. That's kind of my job. And I was clearly the target, Meghan insisted. I really don't think, Jimmy started, but Meghan cut him off. Of course you don't think, she snapped. That's the problem. You don't think about how your words affect people. You don't think about the responsibility that comes with having a platform like this. The audience was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Jimmy took a deep breath. Meghan, I take my responsibility very seriously, and if I hurt you, I apologize. But I also think maybe we're getting a little off track here. Off track? Meghan's voice rose. No, Jimmy. I think we're finally on track. I think we're finally having a real conversation instead of this fake, shallow nonsense that passes for interviews on shows like this. Shows like this, Jimmy repeated, and now there was an edge to his voice too. Meghan, you agreed to come on this show. Nobody forced you to be here. I came here because I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd be different, Meghan said. I thought maybe you'd actually listen, actually care about the issues I'm trying to raise. But you're just like all the rest of them. All the rest of who? Jimmy asked. The talk show hosts. The journalists. The people who pretend to be my friend, but really just want a story. You're all the same. Jimmy leaned back in his chair. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the frustration building inside. Meghan, I've been nothing but respectful to you since you walked out here. I've tried to have a nice conversation, but if you're going to attack me and attack my show, I think we need to take a different approach here. Are you threatening me? Meghan demanded. I'm not threatening anyone, Jimmy said firmly. I'm just saying that this is my show, and I'm not going to sit here and be insulted in front of my audience and my staff and everyone watching at home. Oh, poor Jimmy, Meghan said mockingly. Poor late-night talk show host who makes millions of dollars and has everything handed to him on a silver platter. Do you have any idea what it's like to actually struggle? To actually face real adversity? Actually, yes, I do, Jimmy said quietly. I grew up in a working-class family. I worked incredibly hard to get where I am. But this isn't about me, Meghan. This is about you coming on my show and being disrespectful for no reason. No reason? Meghan stood up now, her voice getting louder. You want to know the reason? The reason is that I'm tired. I'm tired of smiling and nodding and playing the game. I'm tired of people like you who think you can say whatever you want and face no consequences. The audience was completely stunned. Some people looked scared. Others looked angry. Jimmy stood up too, matching her energy, but keeping his composure. Meghan, I think maybe you should sit down. Let's take a breath and try to have a civil conversation. Don't tell me what to do, Meghan shot back. You don't get to tell me what to do. Nobody gets to tell me what to do anymore. I'm done with that. I'm done with men like you thinking you can control women like me. I'm not trying to control you, Jimmy said, his patience clearly wearing thin. I'm trying to have a conversation with you. That's literally the entire point of you being here. The point of me being here, Meghan said, laughing bitterly, was supposed to be that I could share my message, my truth. But you don't want to hear my truth, do you? You just want me to sit here and be charming and tell funny stories and make your audience feel good. That's what talk shows are, Jimmy said. That's the format. You knew that when you agreed to come on. Maybe I changed my mind, Meghan said. Maybe I decided that I'm worth more than this stupid format, and this stupid show, and you. The audience gasped. Jimmy's face hardened. Okay, he said slowly. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to be understanding. But you just called my show stupid and insulted me personally, and I'm not going to stand for that. What are you going to do about it? Meghan challenged. I'm going to ask you to leave, Jimmy said clearly. Excuse me? Meghan's eyes went wide. You heard me, Jimmy said. This is my show. These are my cameras, my studio, my audience. And I'm asking you, very politely, to leave. "You can't kick me off," Meghan sputtered. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, I do," Jimmy said. "You're someone who came on my show as a guest and then proceeded to insult me, insult my staff, insult my audience, and create a hostile environment. So, yes, I absolutely can ask you to leave, and that's what I'm doing." Meghan's face turned red. "This is outrageous. This is censorship. You're trying to silence me because you can't handle the truth." "The truth?" Jimmy said, and now his voice had real steel in it. "The truth is that you came here tonight looking for a fight. I don't know why. Maybe you're having a bad day. Maybe you've got something else going on. But whatever it is, you don't get to take it out on me and my team." "I came here to have a real conversation," Meghan insisted. "No," Jimmy said, shaking his head. "You came here to perform. You came here to create drama. And you know what? I'm not going to give you that satisfaction." "You're making a huge mistake," Meghan warned. "Maybe," Jimmy said, "but it's my mistake to make. This is my show, and I'm asking you to leave. Now." Meghan looked around the studio, as if expecting someone to come to her defense. The audience sat in shocked silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. "Fine," Meghan finally said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I don't want to be on your pathetic show anyway. I have better things to do with my time." "I'm sure you do," Jimmy said evenly. Meghan started to walk toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. "You know what your problem is, Jimmy?" "I'm sure you're going to tell me," Jimmy said. "Your problem is that you're scared," Meghan said. "You're scared of real conversations. You're scared of people who don't fit into your neat little boxes. You're scared of women who have opinions and aren't afraid to share them." "I'm not scared of any of those things," Jimmy replied. "What I don't appreciate is someone coming into my home, because that's what this studio is to me, and treating me and my staff with disrespect. That's not about being strong or having opinions. That's just about being rude." "Call it whatever you want," Meghan said, "but history will remember this moment. History will remember that you silenced me. History will remember that you were asked to leave a talk show because you couldn't be civil," Jimmy corrected. "That's all this is, Meghan. Nothing more, nothing less." Meghan's hands were shaking now, whether from anger or something else. It was hard to tell. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," Jimmy said again, "but right now, I need you to leave my stage." "Make me," Meghan challenged. Jimmy looked off camera and nodded to someone. Within seconds, 2 security guards appeared from the wings. They approached Meghan carefully, professionally. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "we're going to need you to come with us." Meghan looked at the guards, then back at Jimmy, then at the audience. For a moment, it seemed like she might refuse. Then, slowly, she started walking toward the exit, the security guards flanking her on either side. As she reached the edge of the stage, she turned back one more time. "This isn't over, Jimmy." "Yes," Jimmy said quietly. "It is." The security guards escorted Meghan off the stage and out of the studio. The audience sat in absolute silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Jimmy stood there for a long moment, his hands on his hips, staring at the empty chair where Meghan had been sitting. Finally, he turned to the camera. His face was tired, but calm. "Well," he said, "that was unexpected." A few nervous laughs rippled through the audience. "I want to say something," Jimmy continued. "I never want to kick a guest off my show. That's not what this show is about. We're about having fun, sharing stories, making people laugh. But sometimes, rarely, things don't go as planned. And when a guest becomes hostile and disrespectful, I have to make a choice. I have to protect my team, my audience, and the integrity of what we do here." The audience started to applaud. It began slowly, then built into genuine, supportive applause. "Thank you," Jimmy said. "That means a lot." "Look, I don't know what was going on with Meghan tonight. Maybe she's dealing with something we don't know about. Maybe she had a different expectation for what this interview would be. But whatever it was, I hope she finds peace with it." He paused, collecting his thoughts. We had another guest scheduled for later in the show, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll try to get this show back on track. Sound good? The audience applauded again, and Jimmy gave them a small smile before the cameras cut away. Backstage, the mood was tense. Producers were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. Staff members who had witnessed the confrontation were sharing their reactions in hushed voices. Everyone was shocked. In all the years Jimmy Kimmel Live had been on the air, nothing quite like this had ever happened. Jimmy retreated to his dressing room for a moment of privacy. He sat down heavily in his chair and ran his hands through his hair. His head writer knocked and poked his head in. "You okay, boss?" he asked. Jimmy looked up and nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay. That was just intense." "You handled it perfectly," the writer said. "She was completely out of line." "I know," Jimmy said. "But it still doesn't feel good, you know? I never want things to go that way." "Sometimes they just do," the writer said. "You gave her every chance to turn it around. She chose not to." Jimmy nodded again, standing up. "All right, let's get back out there and finish the show. We owe it to the audience." Back in the studio, the band played them back from commercial. Jimmy walked out to huge applause, and the energy in the room had completely shifted. The audience was on his side now, supportive and warm. "All right," Jimmy said, sitting back down at his desk. "That was a lot. But you know what? We're going to move forward, because that's what we do. We keep going." The audience cheered. "Our next guest is someone I've known for years," Jimmy continued. "Someone who is always a joy to talk to, always professional, always kind. And after what just happened, I really need that right now." He looked at the camera with a genuine smile. "Please welcome someone who knows how to be a good guest. Someone I'm always happy to see." The next guest walked out to enthusiastic applause, and the show continued. But everyone knew that what had happened earlier would be the moment everyone remembered. The moment when Jimmy Kimmel had to make a tough decision and stood his ground. In the control room, the director was already fielding calls from the network executives. They wanted to know what had happened, whether they should pull the footage, how to handle the publicity that would inevitably follow. But Jimmy had been clear about his wishes. He wanted the interview to air exactly as it happened. No edits, no cuts, no trying to make it look better than it was. The audience deserved to see the truth of what happened, and he had nothing to hide. As the show wrapped up that night, Jimmy gave his usual thank yous to his guests, his band, his staff, but before signing off, he added one more thing. "I want to thank all of you for sticking with us tonight," he said to the camera. "It wasn't the show we planned, but sometimes life throws you curveballs. What matters is how you handle them. I hope I handled tonight with grace and respect, even in a difficult situation. That's all any of us can do." The audience gave him one final round of applause as the show's closing music played and the credits rolled. In her car on the way home, Meghan sat in the back seat, her arms crossed, her jaw set. Her publicist was already on the phone, doing damage control, trying to spin the story before it got out of hand. But Meghan wasn't listening. She was replaying the confrontation in her mind, convincing herself that she had been right, that Jimmy had been unfair, that she had been the victim. Meanwhile, back in the studio, Jimmy was shaking hands with his staff, thanking them for their support. His team had rallied around him, and he was grateful for that. They all knew he had done the right thing, even if it had been uncomfortable. As he finally headed to his own car, Jimmy thought about the interview. He thought about Meghan's anger, her accusations, her refusal to engage in a normal conversation. He still didn't fully understand what had triggered it all, but he knew one thing for certain. He had protected his show, his staff, and his own dignity. and sometimes that was all you could do. The next morning, the internet would explode with clips and commentary. People would take sides. Some would defend Meghan, claiming she was speaking truth to power. Others would support Jimmy, saying he had every right to remove a hostile guest from his show. The debate would rage for days, maybe weeks. But in that moment, as Jimmy drove home through the Los Angeles night, he felt at peace with his decision. He had drawn a line. He had stood up for himself and his team. And he had done it without losing his cool, without being cruel, without stooping to her level. The studio audience that night had witnessed something unprecedented. They had seen a carefully planned interview spiral completely out of control. They had watched a guest transform from gracious to hostile in a matter of minutes, and they had seen their host handle it with as much professionalism as anyone could have expected. Some of them would tell their friends and family about it the next day. Some would post about it on social media. Some would simply keep it as a memory, a story about the night they saw something truly unexpected happen on live television. Jimmy's wife was still awake when he got home. She had watched the show, had seen the whole thing unfold. "Are you okay?" she asked, giving him a hug. "I'm fine," Jimmy said, and he meant it. "It was weird, but I'm fine." "You did the right thing," she assured him. "I know," he said. "It just wasn't fun." They talked about it for a while, going over the details, trying to make sense of what had happened. Eventually, they went to bed, and Jimmy fell asleep thinking about how sometimes, even when you try to do everything right, things still go wrong. And that was okay. That was life. The interview would become one of those moments that people remembered, that got referenced in articles and think pieces. It would be studied by other talk show hosts as an example of how to handle a difficult guest. It would be used as a teaching moment about respect, boundaries, and professionalism.